So basically at AIB Teaching and Education Shared Interest Group, we are promoting exchange of ideas on IB education and trying to be a forum or sort of a networking tool for the various teachers around the globe in order to see variety of possibilities to enhance the skills, to do the research on IB education, and so on and so forth. So we have teaching cafes at AIB annual meeting, and we have annual newsletter where we gather insights, and more of the activities you can find at our website at the AIB World. They will lead you from there. So that's probably brief about it. And without taking time from Marina, Marina, floor is yours, or screen is yours.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Once again, also a warm welcome from my side. I'm Marina, and I'm honored. It's a pleasure to be here together with you, and I'm so happy to have met Osreen along the way, and that we can facilitate coordination, cooperation. And I'm also thrilled that GSU-CIBER is featuring this webinar. So I'm more than delighted to share the input with you that we've prepared today. And without further ado, I try to share here the screen so that you can see also my slides. So just give me a couple of seconds to get this going. All right. So today, as you know, on our agenda are the tools and innovative teaching formats in sustainability education. And I would love to stay connected with you guys, and that we foster also together cooperation and also the future dialogue on especially sustainability related educational materials. So whenever I share something here in the slides that you found helpful, or you have other suggestions for me that I can implement, I'm more than happy that you do so and share this. Yeah, what you can also see here on the slide, so Osreen has been so kind to already introduce the AIB Teaching and Education Shared Interest Group to you, but nevertheless, I wanted to give it a shout out as well. You can see here the leadership team and of course the mission and vision statement. So if you're interested in the activities, so they are doing a wonderful job. So I would definitely encourage you to visit their webpage. They have a contact formula where you can also get in contact with them, which I used as well. So that is how I met Osreen, and I do not regret the step to say you that. And furthermore, I would definitely also recommend you to have a look at the newsletter. So you can see here a screenshot of one of their issues, and a very valuable material that they share here as well. In addition to that, I would like to also introduce the newly founded AIB Sustainability Shared Interest Group. That's still a very young shared interest group, but nevertheless, I also wanted to here give a shout out to John and Shasha, who are doing a fabulous job, and I'm looking forward to further collaboration. And I'm happy that this is the first attempt to bring these two shared interest groups closer together. So if you're interested, please also reach out, and I'm happy to see further collaboration going on. What will be the contents of today's presentation? First of all, I've prepared a toolbox overview for you guys, so that it will be tackling 3 areas mainly. So roughly I've prepared 8 tools. There are of course many more, but I thought, just not to overwhelm you, these should be sufficient for our first webinar. And I try to divide them in 3 areas. The first area is the awareness and knowledge building tool set. So I have integrated 3 tools in this domain. Then something to reflect on in the area of contemplation, so tools 4 and 5, and then to get going, to get us all involved and take action, tools 6 to 8. And in the second part, I will also introduce to you some teaching formats that I have the pleasure to co-develop with other European universities and partners. So 2 projects that we at CBS are involved in at the moment, the Issue project and the Effort project, both of them are centered around sustainability related teaching and education content at higher education institutions. Yeah, so first of all, getting into the toolboxes. Yeah, I'm very interested to your feedback also afterwards. So the first toolbox set I've prepared is awareness and knowledge building. So I guess that this is probably nothing too new for you guys. So first of all, we have here the footprint calculators. I think personally also in the field of sustainability related education, this is not something that is super new to you. I think many of you use it already, but nevertheless, I wanted to share some insights how I use it and how I think it could be integrated in educational material. So first of all, before I go into the calculators, I wanted to share a little bit my understanding of sustainability, or let's say the focus for today's session. Of course, sustainability is far more comprehensive than the tools that I will present to today. The tools that I've picked are mainly coming from the ecological domain. So of course, we have also to talk about social aspects. We have to talk about business cases in the domain of sustainability to also get businesses involved, get them going, get them convinced even to engage in the field of sustainability. But for today's session, I've picked especially toolkits or tools that are coming from the ecological viewpoint of the sustainability discussion. And yeah, I hope that you would find this appropriate. And yeah, nevertheless, I'm happy to also yeah, do some future sessions on the social dimensions and some tools. Yeah, so when I use the footprint calculators, I usually want to get my students involved in reflecting on their personal consumption and on our consumption habits. So first of all, you have your different footprint calculators on the web page. There are, of course, millions more out there in the web. So there's first of all one from the Global Footprint Network that I used, ecological footprint calculator that is also tied in with the Earth Overshoot Day. So you can as well then inform students about what the Earth Overshoot Day is, to get them also reflected on how we have different consumption patterns across the global north and global south. Then we have also more specified footprint calculators, like for example, the fashion footprint calculator. So you can see all the links also below in the sources. Then we also have a footprint, or let's say footprint calculation in the domain of plastics usage. I think this footprint calculator is maybe more yeah, let's say, yeah, rather shallow in the implications. So for the fashion footprint calculator, as well as for the ecological footprint calculator, you can use the results to already, let's say, reflect a little bit on your own consumption and think about how you can improve, take action, and so on. So they provide you already areas for improvement. Whereas I think the plastic footprint calculator shows you a little bit more only whether you are above or below average, an average consumer in your respective country. So this is, of course, only the first step, but then we need to talk about the next steps and what the implications are of calculating such a footprint. Yeah, when we also talk maybe about the social aspects in supply chains and so on, one calculator that I found especially helpful is the slavery footprint calculator. So having here a little bit of a daring title, how many slaves work for you? So very interesting and thought-provoking as well. The second tool that you guys probably already use or have come across are certain knowledge tests. There are many of these around. One of the rather prominent ones is the so-called SULI test that has been also a project output. I've also linked it here below in the descriptions. So also trying to assess how much knowledge do you possess on sustainability related topics. However, there is also considerable criticism on certain tools that measure knowledge. I do, of course, agree with that, but nevertheless, I think it gets students going to reflect on their status quo. And I think that's what I find these tools really useful for. On the right-hand side, you can see a very, very short version, let's say, respectively only climate related or CO2 emissions related. It's coming from the Climate Footnotes webpage, and you can use these questions to also form your own quiz and to give students a score. But if you are interested to also explain a little bit more the background of why a certain answer is false or true, then I would certainly recommend then to engage with your students and maybe read also the article by Thaler and Bruderman, 2020, You Know Nothing, John Doe. So also talking about and reflecting about judgmental overconfidences in climate knowledge. So we personally, or most of people, do assess their sustainability knowledge as higher than it is in reality. So that is also something that you can reflect again with your students by comparing their knowledge to reality and then also following up on that. What I also found quite useful when we're talking about the SDGs as a next topical area in the field of sustainability, I can totally recommend the so-called Gapminder Quiz. It's also reflecting on how much you actually know about the SDGs versus your assumed knowledge. Very interesting quiz that you can also check out later. For the next domain, I've also integrated here the contemplation stage. So first of all, what I have come across, and I think that is also something you probably face even in universities these days, different narratives why we somehow cannot act upon protecting or changing something about the climate crisis. So this narrative of or discourses of climate delay. And I found this online game quite useful. So they have a German and an English version. I've also linked the web page here below, and when you access the web page, you will be taken to an interface with different types of citations, and then you need to drag and drop the citations according to these four characters you see here on the slide. So first of all, we have here the suggestion radical change is not necessary. Then we have change will hurt us. The other narrative, the others first. So redirecting responsibility. And there the last viewpoint, capitulation. So there is nothing more we can do anyway. I find it very important to talk to people, but also to our students about these issues, because the problem is usually that also in class, you probably have students that do not believe that climate change is existing even. You have that in university context, so it's not an issue that you face in, let's say, lower education levels or something like that. Is still a very common topic in our societies in Germany, but also wherever you go. So we need to also educate our students and to sensitize them across the different narratives that exist here, and reflect a little bit more on the reasons and argumentation strategies behind that. So this is also a very good opportunity to talk about climate communication in general with students. You can even apply that then, or take it as far as to apply it to a marketing context even. How you communicate sustainability efforts, climate related efforts that companies engage in, how you could even, let's say, assess their efforts. Is it really a lot that companies are doing? Is it too little? And to really think about how they are also communicating this in and across social media, but also in their reports maybe. Tool 5 I found especially helpful. This is also a tool that I came across, or a colleague of mine actually came across when attending a session by the House of Beautiful Business. So if you haven't heard about this network so far, I would really recommend this. So I've also put the link down below. It's a smaller think tank of basically or centered at around in Europe, but also considerable connections to global leaders and global outreach to academics and so on, professionals. And it's very interesting, a very different viewpoint on business and how we should do business. And they have also published a very interesting book that helps me usually to reflect a little bit on my teaching philosophy, but also in general on business. They usually use the term, which I find very interesting, business romantic. I would consider myself to be one as well, probably. And it's very inspiring usually to hear their talks. And this is one of the tools that they used in one of their sessions. And I wanted to share this again with you. So the idea behind this tool is being a carbon consultant so that students can counsel each other. And you can not only use it for students, you can even use that among faculty, you can even use that for professionals, you can use it also for administrative stuff and so on. So you can then engage in making a personalized plan for each person in your working group. And the ideas would be to first choose a goal, then secondly, identify specific concrete actions, and then also stress test the plan. Are there certain obstacles that you would anticipate? Are there certain solutions that you need to generate? And this is the working sheet that you can use if you want. So there are certain goals that you can pick. So for example, you want to bike to university, let's say at least 3 out of 5 days a week or something like that. So if you consider the working week, then taking a specific action in this regard, anticipated obstacles. So maybe you're more or less inclined to bike to work if, let's say, it's raining outside or snowing, but then you can say, oh, well, then at least I would take the public transport instead of going by car, for example. So just these like tiny steps that really get you going and get you thinking and involved around different topics. And you can consider basically any type of goal that you want. So it's spread from eating habits to consumption patterns, like how many clothing items do you buy, and so on and so forth. Yeah, getting to the actionable stuff with toolbox aspects 6 to 8. These are some of my favorite ones. So I don't know if you guys have come across the Enrolls model already. It's a very concise and very straightforward tool to create climate scenarios. As you know, the goal is to stay below 2 degrees Celsius of global warming. And I copied here the screenshot of this tool to the slide. So this is the interface that you see when you first log onto the check out the web page. And then what you can see here on the upper right corner is that we are currently moving towards a trajectory of global warming of around about 3.6 degrees Celsius, at least based on the calculators that are used for this tool. Now, what you need to do, or let's say what you need to also discuss with students, is the lower part here of this model. So you can see the different sections like energy supply, transport, buildings and industry, growth, carbon removal, and so on and so forth. So what you can also see below these aspects are these sliders. So you can just like click on that via your mouse, and then you can also move and hover over these 3 dots that you can see next to, let's say, coal, for example, or next to the carbon price. And then it gives you much more detailed insights. So what kind of factors and numbers specifically are you using now for the assumption for the scenario that you generate? And you can use this tool like rather superficially. So students also like to play around with these like sliding options and see also the curve at the upper hand of the screen to move and to change according to the movement of the sliders. Now, you can also do that in a little bit more detail. Let's say you can even generate a whole workshop series around these climate models, thinking about how businesses and let's say businesses in certain sectors and industries react to that, what needs to happen in let's say the specific sectors to really meet these goals, how cross-sector collaboration should look like, and so on and so forth. And I don't want to go into too much detail what you can do with this tool. The possibilities are very comprehensive, to say the least. So you can also check out their climate ambassador training. So their tool comes with a training that you can register for. And they also have on their webpage very extensive material that you can use alongside with this tool that they provide. So there is no need to log in. You just go simply to the website of the training tool. And the link here on the slide is not the direct link to the tool itself, but it's the tool to familiarize yourself with the solutions that this tool is providing you with. So of course, then if you're lucky, you have come to a conclusion of different kinds of scenarios that are staying or that make you arrive at below 2 degrees Celsius. But then the question is, of course, what do we need to do, or what are certain solutions in specific industries, and what can we do to achieve this scenario? And the Climate Interactive link below is taking you to the scenario, but you also have like more possibilities, let's say, to engage in, let's say, a quiz about certain climate scenarios. This link I will also provide you with a handout that I share with you later on. Now, another project that I really like and that you also need to know is the project Drawdown. So I already told you about sector and industry solutions. The project Drawdown is the considered separately of this like climate calculator, but what they do very well is the industry and sector specific solutions. And this is the solution quiz that you can access here. And when I did it myself for the first time, I was actually very embarrassed that I scored so low. And it's interesting. So I would definitely recommend it. Just takes a couple of minutes, some questions, and then you need to rank certain industry solutions across, or you need to compare them to each other, and the positive impact that you could generate here, and the CO2 emission reduction that, or the potential of the CO2 emission reduction that comes along with that. Now, having said that, or having shown you the project Drawdown, but also the climate model, you might ask yourself, okay, how can I, for example, use that in my class? So here are just a couple of tools and that I was throwing in together. So for example, what you can ask your students is that they need to analyze the current status quo. So for example, which countries are the world's top 10 carbon emitters? Now, of course, you don't want to your students to jump to a conclusion too hastily. So the second aspect would then be to also juxtapose the CO2 emissions to other data like income and so on and so forth, or per capita emissions, something like that. For this matter, I can absolutely recommend the Our World in Data database. It's a vast database that you probably all know already, and they have also a section on CO2 emissions. And the idea here is to also let students maybe browse over the page and let them just digest what is in the, or what is reflected in the different infographics. And I usually then ask my students, what are the lessons learned when you compare these different aspects? What did you find surprising, not so surprising, and so on? And the last task, for example, could then also be combining here one of the carbon footprint calculators, not only talking about what let's say others can do in this terminology, you could say, okay, when I look at carbon emissions, there are certain other nations that are maybe need to act more promptly than an individual. And usually my students say, yeah, what can I make of a difference as an individual? But then once again, I think it's very important that students also understand that society does play a vital role in changing the status quo. And so I use also these footprint calculations to reflect upon this together with them, and to also ask them what they can specifically change. But about the change, I've also a tool that I want to show you later on, the 21-day challenge, which is also using a very similar, let's say very similar intuition on following up with these type of changes. The second task could then be, again, the macro perspective. So what can be possible solutions to overcome the climate crisis? So they can have a look at the Enrolls simulator, and they need to come up with a scenario themselves that is targeting below 2 degrees of global warming. So they can click on the link here that will take them to the scenario or to the calculator. And then they can also have a look at industry-specific solutions to make it a little bit more concrete and not stay only on a global level. So what kind of solutions have the highest impact? And to do that, you would usually then guide them towards the table of solutions with specific industries. A tool that I also very much like is a tool that is centering around the SDGs. So as you probably know, most of the 17 SDGs are difficult for companies to apply, since most of the indicators usually can be only measured and followed up on a national level. Now, the SDG Compass, so the first link that you can, and the second link here that you can see, is taking you to a database that offers comparisons to other KPIs and measurement indicators like the Global Reporting Initiative and so on. And as companies usually, or the bigger multinationals, are using Global Reporting Initiative standards anyways already, it makes it easier to also connect that again back to the goals of the SDGs. So this is kind of the overall narrative. And the question would then be, how can we integrate and tackle the SDGs? And we can do that, for example, by making use of this SDG Compass. And usually you have different steps. So after you have been diving into the SDGs and explaining a little bit the context around the SDGs together with your students, then you can already enter into step 2, defining priorities. What I usually suggest to my students is that, first of all, they could map the value chain to identify the main impact areas for a certain company. The second step, identify the negative and positive impacts. And then third, define priorities. So this all happens in the second step. And here, once again, so this tool has been facilitated by our pioneers into practice that were following up with us, especially here, Jackie and Carolina. So I'm very excited to show this tool also to you. Yeah, first of all, mapping the value chain, as I mentioned. So you could basically choose any type of a company example here. So this time they wanted to investigate or have a look at McDonald's here and the McDonald's supply chain. And this is, of course, an oversimplified supply chain, right? So you can also modify this, of course. So the idea here is to have an input, list the activities, outputs, marketing and sales services, and to do that or to fill in these brackets, the students can refer to the below guiding questions. And then, so usually we played that in the classroom. I don't know if you can see it now. I just hold it into the camera. So this is kind of the sheet that then students can scribble on. So you can also use it then multiple times. So they also made sure that this is a sustainable, let's say, tool that they generate, but you can also transfer this to an online interface, of course. The second aspect would then be to identify the positive and negative impacts. So this is just an example here, the mining industry in this case. And this is what should happen in the next exercise. So the students should then think about mining industry, certain implications, and then try to have a look at what kind of goals can be influenced only in an indirect way, what kind of goals can the company influence directly. Then I think about positive and negative impact. So how can you positively enhance certain SDGs, or how can you mitigate the negative impact your business is making by simply operating? Now, how you can then use it. So the students again came up with this sheet that you can now also see on the slide. And the idea would then be, and they did like a really neat job. So you can see now here all of these tiny SDGs. You can actually put that on the sheet as well. And then move the SDGs around here on this map, and then try to discuss also with your group members what are positive, negative impacts, what are the most important SDGs of or for McDonald's in this case to tackle. And then the second question that they need to reflect on is how can this help to define priorities? So of course, when you map all the 17 SDGs out here on the slide, it's not really feasible that, let's say an organization can tackle all of the 17 SDGs. However, then students need to come up with priorities. And then I usually ask them, well, if you just look at the layout of your SDGs, which section would you recommend the company to tackle? And most of the students say, well, I think that's very clear, right? So you use the section or the SDGs that you put next to the block here that says direct. So of course, if you have a direct impact, a direct influence, it's easier for you to change something. And these are the SDGs that I then also ask the students to focus on. And they can do this by setting them specific goals for these SDGs. And they should set the goals along the SMART tool, SMART considerations. So coming up with a goal that is specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. And here we already enter step 3 of this roadmap. And here, once again, students came also up with this sheet where students can then also scribble on. And the idea is then to set out a goal that could be something like, McDonald's should foster renewables. And then the idea would be to set a time frame. So until when would that be achievable? So let's say if we assume 2030, then you also need to decide on a metric. Do they need to go fully renewable by 2030, so 100%, or maybe only 30%, or maybe you want a certain growth rate also to be addressed? Then you fill in the field here of metric 1.5% or something like that. And just make sure that you also signal to the students these goals should be realistic. So they should be somehow achievable within this time frame and according to the metric that they choose. And then once again, the SDG that by addressing this goal is enhanced, and also the SDG where the negative impact then is mitigated. Yeah, so that is actually as far as this tool has developed. Of course, you can then continue with integrating with reporting and communication and so on. But we have left this out of the tool consideration. So if you have any suggestions how we can develop that and enhance the tool, we are more than happy to collaborate here. Now, of course, we all know that all these nice sheets and even like all the SDGs that the students then cut out cannot work now, because we're not or mostly not doing in-class sessions. But you can easily transform all of the input from the previous slides to an online interface. So most of you have probably already used several types of boards, online boards, to engage with students, for example, Miro and so on. So these would be possibilities how you can just simply transfer it to an online setting. Yeah, coming now to the second part here with teaching formats that I wanted to quickly introduce to you. And these come, as I just mentioned at the beginning, from different types of research projects. So the first one is the issue project, where we mainly develop teaching formats, but also other outputs, intellectual outputs are then fostered. So today I will just present to you number 3 and number 6, so the 21-day challenge and the escape room. We also are currently working on a summer school that is called the Future Sustainable Managers Program. But there are also other outputs along this project that are worth maybe considering. So for the university administration and development, we have an integrated reporting manual that we develop for universities. We also provide for educators a methodology handbook with cases that they could use and apply in their teaching. And what we also do is develop a green office strategy toolkit and guidelines that can also be used in the administrative departments across the university. If you want to learn more, I've also included here the webpage and yeah, our newsletter, or let's say our contact details, so that you can also reach out to us in case you're interested in the results. Yeah, as I just mentioned, so the 21-day challenge is a tool or a format that I'm very, very much looking forward to. So this is again a tool to take action. So what we plan to do, and our partners here from Finland are working on it. They are currently trying to move the 21-day challenge that we have developed together to a Moodle-powered educational platform that is also then accessible to external lecturers. So also we try to provide it or make it accessible to all of you. And we're currently just figuring out how we can do this from the technical side. It would be also very easy to integrate in any course, so it's not a whole format, but you can easily apply this in some of your sessions or alongside the course even. And it would be suitable for students, teachers, and university staff, for example. And you can use it to build a habit of sustainable living. Learners can easily get inspired by each other, and it's easy and fun because it uses a gamification element. So how does it work? So first of all, what we usually try to do at first is that we evaluate sustainability awareness. So an entry quiz at the beginning is usually quite helpful. Then we have a cycle that is the 21-day challenge per se. So first of all, the idea behind the 21-day challenge is that a habit can be transformed within 21 days. So the idea would be that they start watching videos on one of the 17 SDGs that we have recorded, choose a respective challenge, trying to accomplish it, then posting the results in Moodle, and then getting points for this. And this gamified approach would then help also students to engage a little bit more with the material, learn more about the SDGs. And then they also need to take a final quiz after that to get their certificate. Yeah, materials that we are using from all over Europe. And of course, this gamification is usually very interesting for students because they also want to get the high score most of the time. Yeah, the second aspect the second format that I really look forward to presenting to you is the sustainability escape room. So you can see here in the middle a photo shoot of the escape room. So the outer door of the escape room, no planet B. And what we build is a sustainable development escape room. It's also easy to integrate as part of any course. It's even suitable for a wider range of target audiences, not only students, but teachers, university staff, companies, and the like. We are trying now, of course, due to the pandemic, we cannot really use it now. So an online version is also something that we really want to develop in the future. And again, it's using a gamified learning experience, and it's also a great team building experience. probably some of you have been already engaging in escape rooms, so it's usually quite a lot of fun. Yeah, this is also the layout of the escape room. So we have different parts of the escape room, and students need to complete certain challenges and solve certain riddles to unlock certain doors and panels and so on, so that they can really enter the full escape room and solve and get out at the end. Yeah, on the right-hand side, you can see also the pictures here from inside of the escape room. And our goals here with the escape room were to enhance players' knowledge of sustainable development in the first place, raising awareness, sensitizing people, especially our students, and trying to change attitudes, change consumer habits and decisions, and also emphasizing that there is no plan B or planet B in this case, and that the Earth has to be saved through responsible behavior, and that we also must act soon. So the target group, as I just mentioned, primary for students, university professors and employees, but also any other people that would be interested, so the corporate world, local communities, and so on. And we were estimating that around about 4 to 5 players could enter the escape room. Otherwise, it's maybe a little bit too cozy. The duration could be set at around about 1 to 1.5 hours, and it's a linear game through the SDGs. So again, it's organized according to the SDGs. So all of the riddles are then using thematic fields of the SDGs. The other project that we are working on is the EFFORT project. Again, partner universities across Europe. You can also check out the website that is built, or you can register with the newsletter to get some updates. So the idea here is to improve the effectiveness and quality of sustainability-related teaching, and again, also to build competencies related to sustainability and responsible management, to come also up with new innovative teaching formats. And one of the outputs for educators would be a handbook of innovative teaching methods, again, suitable across different target populations. And there are certain aspects that I now want to emphasize here on. So first of all, we have one specific format that we are developing at CVS. It's the Future Scenario Workshop, where we also try to, let's say, tap into potentials of design thinking, creating future scenarios together with students. It's like a future workshop method that we are relying on. So you can see here the 4 different phases. So the preparation phase, critique phase, fantasy phase, and implementation phase. So this is, of course, a rather preliminary draft. So we are just exploring and developing all of the material. Again, this will also then be open access, and we are just sketching out different weeks where we use different challenges, different tools to get students going into imagining the future. So for example, the future game 2050 and so on and so forth. So also thinking alongside utopian scenarios. And I hope that this will also foster creativity among students, and we're very happy to keep you updated here on this specific format. I also didn't want to miss out to share this call for collaboration with you guys. So the EFFORT project is also aiming to help us as educators to provide us with an let's say a compendium, a handbook that is gathering innovative teaching methods. Maybe some of you that are in this call have already signed up, so we will circulate the survey, and for people who have innovative teaching methods to offer next week. And if you are or still haven't signed up and have a very interesting format to share, then please also reach out to my colleague Elena or to me, and we will be happy to have you on board. And the aim of this handbook would be to compile innovative teaching methods, especially in the field of sustainability or sustainability and management education specifically. And yeah, to provide really educators then after the end of the compilation with an open access handbook that everybody can then use and draw meaningful knowledge and inspiration from. So we have already around about 60 expressions of interest. So we also expect that this will be a very useful handbook for us educators. Yeah, and with that, I would already like to almost finish my elaborations here. And first of all, I would try to, or I would like to finish this talk by mentioning that I'm personally convinced, and I think most of you in this call probably as well, that it needs or we need an educational overhaul, and we need to also move away from this outdated and old paradigm, linear thinking, passive students, to a rather comprehensive systems thinking approach, where the teacher is the facilitator, where we have more an active student body that we can engage with, and that we also foster competencies across our students, especially in the management education domain, that are or that make them future fit. And to do this, or to move maybe a step forward and not really have only these like scattered teaching formats, I think it's important to also have more of a conceptual framework. And to do this at the CBS, we are tapping into the potential of developing an SDG teaching map, where we are trying to see where we still have gaps in our teaching portfolio, where we are not really implementing and integrating or addressing sustainability related issues. And yeah, this is kind of our road forward. I would love to hear what you're currently busy with. And yeah, with that, I would like to conclude. And thank you once again for having me, listening to me. And wanted to also end with this quote: nothing you do will amount to more than a single drop in a limitless ocean. But what is an ocean but a multitude of drops? So we can all change the system or contribute to its change. And I'm looking forward to engaging in the discussion with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Marina. The chat is boiling from thanks to you and your wonderful materials. It's absolutely excellent tips and tools that we all can, I think we're all ready to rush and bring them back to our classrooms. But we have a lot of great questions. And without further ado, because we have very little time left, let's very quickly jump into answering them. So now you've presented a lot of possibilities to implement the tools. What would be the key challenge or obstacle when implementing them that we could expect, and how to overcome it?
Yeah, I think the issue is always to have also the acceptance from the facilitators or from the educators. I know that also, like some of my colleagues, I don't have to convince that sustainability is super important, and that we also should integrate this not only in like the general management education, but also in other disciplines and more focus like areas like, for example, marketing and finance and so on and so forth. But of course, everyone has their own belief system. So this is a challenge that we are currently facing. So we need to convince our fellow educators. That's not always that easy, because you don't want to be too dogmatic and impose something on them, but rather convince them that this is kind of the future that we also want to improve together. So
I see. Now you mentioned educators. What about students? What are their reactions, or what is their motivation? Is there a difference between those courses that are optional and obligatory? If you could comment on that.
Usually at CBS, for example, we have students who are always like very engaged. So they take every possibility to engage in sustainability related, even extracurricular events, but also lectures that we offer. but then we have students who are very critical at first and also probably remain like this during the course, which is also excellent, to be honest, because I really like the challenge as an educator to engage, especially with the students who don't like sustainability, who don't believe in it, who don't want to change. And I think it's very important that we remain critical. And as much as I like the topic of sustainability, I think we have to be fair to and inclusive with everyone in the student group, and not to kind of sideline the students who don't believe in something. I think this critical discourse can really foster also, the understanding for the topic. And I also try to then kind of not approach it from the sustainability in terms of normative viewpoint and values viewpoint, but rather address it from a risk management perspective. That is usually easier for the students to understand.
Yeah. Excellent. That was a very good tip, in a way that not the value perspective, but the risk management perspective can be very effective. That is excellent. Yeah. We had very practical questions coming up. So there are a variety of tools that were mentioned. Are they available everywhere around the world? Are they accessible everywhere? And are they free of charge, or is there some fee for using them?
Yeah, so all of the tools that I included are open access, so there is no fee that you have to pay. Some tools, yes, of course, you pay with your data, so to speak, so that you have to log in with an email account or something like that. Or register or something, but all of the other tools are freely available. Also the ones that we develop within the Erasmus Plus projects that I presented at the end, these will be open access as well. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. That's a great news. Yeah. Now about the degree level. These tools better work with certain degree level, or is there any difference about application for undergrads or masters or continuous education? Yeah. If you could comment a bit on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I would definitely say so. I mean, for example, with the SDG tool that I presented to you, kind of with these like nice papers, and that you can fill in something and move the SDGs around and so on. Maybe for the bachelor students, you rather gloss over certain aspects, especially I think the KPIs and measurement is a little bit too much for them at the beginning. Because they need to dig into some information a little bit more profound. So they need to know about maybe scope 1, 2, 3 emissions. They need to know a little bit more about global reporting initiatives. They need to know more about reporting in general. So that is maybe not feasible in a more general course. So this is something that students, for example, in the master courses can do better. For example, we had a course this semester in sustainable supply chain management, where we were using also this measurement approach and the SDG Compass to come up with comparisons across companies and so on and so forth. I can also share this material if that is of help. Yeah, but definitely. So some of the tools I rather than do not go into in so much detail, because then you need to also provide more background information, which is sometimes, I think, for the bachelor students especially very difficult to digest, because it's so overwhelming and it's so comprehensive. So yeah, it depends a little bit on how much time you want to devote, I think.
Right. And relating to that, there was a question about your practices of making students read and analyze CSR or sustainability reports and sort of criticize them, analyze them, in addition to the, the tools. Is it such a thing supplementing, or do you do such things, or like, what's your take on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm currently doing a course that is called Business and Society, and I ask students to either speak about, let's say, social or environmental phenomenon like plastic waste or something like that, or even pick a company example like Tesla or whatever, and then check out their sustainability reports, but also kind of triangulate this information. So of course, in the sustainability reports, every company wants to look nice and appear like the most environmentally friendly company on the planet. And that is not true, even not for the companies that are maybe ahead of the pack, right? And my challenge for the students is that I say, well, I want you to be very critically in analyzing this, in comparing it to other countries. Is the CO2 emissions that they want to achieve, is this really like State of the art is that maybe just a little bit too low of a target, so that they try to compare maybe different companies as well. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. And what about using the tools as standalone or a classroom activity versus having them in a course? What works best and what would you recommend?
Yeah, I think there are tools that are just not developed to an extent that they could, could cover a whole course, for example. So I think also for the 21-day challenge, it's just a part of a course. It's not that much of an extensive material portfolio that it can cover several weeks. So it's probably just something that you can do for a couple of sessions, but not for, let's say, 10 to 14 weeks or something like that. So there are tools, and I can also make that maybe a little bit more clear in the handout then, to specify what kind of duration I would recommend and how educators can use it. Yeah. There are differences. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Which is your favorite tool and why?
Ooh, that's difficult. I like all of them, but I kind of really like the scenario model here of Enrolls. That has really blown my mind, to be honest, because I always find it very difficult to show students the complexity of all of the different factors and how all of the different solutions can kind of lead us towards the right climate beneficial scenario. So what kind of measures, what type of engagement is necessary to really achieve that? And I think this tool makes it so easy to understand, like how much really we need to do. And if you just spice it up with other tools like the project Drawdown and so on with the industry solutions, I think that works very well.
Okay, nice. And probably we have the time for the last question before we're kicked out. So teaching from, so to say, old economy perspective versus emerging markets and using these tools that you've presented, what would be your suggestion or comment? Do they work? And
You mean like emerging economy perspective versus like this, like
yes,
global
utilizing
North,
these
South.
tools for example in any kind of emerging economy classrooms versus, for example, in Europe or US or yes.
Yeah. I think most of the tools are applicable in both contexts. However, I would say that there are certain aspects in terms of understanding of sustainability that you first need to clarify, because sustainability is understood very differently. So I think when it first emerged in the US, it was more considered like the philanthropic kind of interpretation. Now I know it's changing. It's also blended in with strategy and integrated perspective. But I think when it emerged in Europe, it was rather from the get-go a little bit more the strategic domain. So, and for example, in Asia, we have a totally different understanding here once again. They are somehow overlapping, but they are not like exactly the same. So I would then offer more room for discussion about what sustainability actually means, I would say.
Okay, excellent. But this is a place to stop. Thank you very much. And we will answer the remaining questions then via the handout and the email. Thank you very much, Marina, and everyone for a fantastic discussion.
Thank you, Marina and Astrid, for this very informative session with fabulous tools and resources. Thank you, everyone, for joining us from all over the world with great questions. The materials shared by Marina and recording of this session will be available in a few days on our GSU-CIBER website. Before you leave, please take 1 minute to respond to our survey. We have more webinars coming up. The next one is about a brand new tool, Inclusion Competencies Inventory, featuring Joanne Barnes, Alan Bird, and Joyce Osland on March 11th. The registration information are already available on our website. We hope to see you then. Thanks, everyone. Till next time.